The dining room went silent when the little girl asked why her father was not allowed to sit by the window. Across the polished floor, a white tablecloth waited beneath warm lights. A family who had arrived after them had already been seated there. The hostess had smiled for them. For Elijah Brooks and his 8-year-old daughter Maya, she had said there was nothing available. Then the manager stepped closer and told Elijah that Riverside Table was not the kind of place for everyone. He did not raise his voice. He did not tell the man that his name was written on the deed. He did not point to the old framed photograph near the bar, taken on opening night, where a younger Elijah stood with a borrowed apron and a dream nobody thought would survive. He simply looked at Maya's crumpled paper crane and asked for a glass of water. Minutes later, one code entered into the restaurant system would expose stolen tips, erased complaints, and a rule the staff had used to decide which customers deserved respect. If you have ever been judged before anyone knew your story, stay with us. At 6:12 on Saturday evening, Maya Brooks placed a pale blue paper crane beside Elijah's coffee mug. It was not perfect. One wing leaned lower than the other. The folds were soft where her small fingers had pressed too many times. But Elijah picked it up with the care people used for things that could break. "What is this one for?" he asked. Maya sat across from him at the kitchen table, her legs tucked beneath the chair. She wore yellow socks with tiny suns on them and had one pencil tucked behind her ear. "For today," she said. "That is a big job for one bird. It can handle it," Elijah smiled. "What does it do?" "It reminds you to be kind, even when somebody else forgets." The kitchen window was open a few inches. Early summer air moved the thin curtain near the sink. Outside, the city was beginning its Saturday night noise. Car doors shutting, a bus sighing at the corner, music leaking from an apartment 3 floors down. Elijah slipped the paper crane into the inside pocket of his faded brown jacket. Maya watched carefully to make sure it was safe. "Dinner at a real restaurant?" she asked. "Dinner at a real restaurant? With cloth napkins? That depends on whether you promise not to turn one into a cape. I only did that one time. You did it during a mayor's fundraiser." He laughed. "He did. And you laughed too." "I did not laugh," Elijah said as he stood. Maya narrowed her eyes at him. "You made the snort sound." Elijah placed one hand over his chest. "That is a serious accusation." For the first time that day, Maya laughed loudly enough to fill the small apartment. That sound had become precious to him. 3 years earlier, their home had been quieter in a different way. Then there had been hospital calls, unopened mail, meals left untouched, and a little girl who woke from nightmares, with her hands searching through the dark for someone who was not there. Elijah had learned not to force the sadness out of the room. He had learned to sit beside it. He learned how to braid Maya's hair from online videos. He learned how to make pancakes shaped like animals, though most of them looked like clouds after a storm. He learned that grief did not leave all at once. It changed its shoes and came back through another door. But lately Maya had started drawing again. She drew birds, parks, tables with too many chairs around them. Sometimes she drew a woman with a bright scarf and a wide smile, standing in the corner of the page as if she had simply stepped out for groceries and would be home soon. Elijah never corrected the drawings. He only kept them. By 7 o'clock, they were standing beneath the black awning of Riverside Table. The restaurant occupied the ground floor of a restored brick building near the river. Its tall windows glowed gold against the blue evening. A valet opened the door for a couple in evening clothes. Somewhere inside, glasses touched. A piano played a soft version of an old song Elijah knew from his mother's kitchen. Maya tilted her head back to study the sign. "The letters look fancy," she said. "They cost too much," Elijah replied. She looked at him. "You know that?" "I know a few things." The first Riverside Table had been no more than 12 seats, a second-hand stove, and a menu written on a chalkboard. Elijah had built it with his wife Naomi, after years of saving every extra dollar from his work as a structural engineer. Naomi had wanted a place where people could celebrate without feeling they had to become someone else first. No dress code that quietly pushed people away. No staff trained to see a person's worth in a watch, a handbag, or the car waiting outside. No customer treated like a problem because they looked tired, spoke differently, or brought children who sometimes spilled juice. "Good food is a welcome," Naomi used to say. "If it is not a welcome, it is just expensive." The restaurant had grown after that. One location became 3. 3 became 11. Then Naomi got sick. After she died, Elijah stepped away from the public side of the company. The board urged him to return. Investors asked for interviews. Magazine editors wanted the story of the black engineer who built a neighborhood restaurant into a respected city brand. He said no to all of them. He kept his office key in a drawer. He attended board meetings by video. He signed papers after Maya went to sleep. And when people asked why the founder of Riverside Table dressed like a man who fixed his own sink, Elijah simply said he liked clothes that had pockets. Tonight he wore dark jeans, work boots, and the old brown jacket Maya had seen him wear 100 times. To anyone looking quickly, he could have been a tired father taking his daughter out for a rare meal. That was exactly what he wanted to be. Inside the host stand stood beneath a wall of green plants and brass lights. A young woman with glossy hair and a silver name tag looked up from a tablet. "Good evening," Elijah said. "Table for two, please." The woman glanced at Maya, then at Elijah's jacket, then toward the dining room. Her smile stayed in place, but something behind it changed. "Do you have a reservation?" "No, but I was hoping you might have room." "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "We're completely booked." Maya leaned sideways, trying to see around the host stand. Near the windows, 4 tables sat empty. One held 2 menus and a small vase of white flowers. Another had not even been cleared of its fresh place settings. A server walked past them, carrying folded napkins, then disappeared through the swinging doors. Maya looked up at her father. "There are seats over there," she whispered. Elijah saw them too. He looked back at the hostess's badge. "Claire, are those reserved?" he asked calmly. Claire followed his eyes. Her smile tightened. "Yes, all 4? "Yes, sir." A man in a navy blazer approached from behind them. He was perhaps 40, broad through the shoulders, with a restaurant manager's polished shoes and an impatient expression already prepared for somebody else. "Everything all right here?" he asked. Claire lowered her voice, though not enough. "They don't have a reservation." The man looked at Elijah, then at Maya. His gaze stopped at Elijah's boots. "Saturday night is difficult," he said. "You understand?" Elijah extended a hand. "I'm Elijah." The man did not take it. "Grant," he said. "Floor manager." Maya's fingers found Elijah's hand. He felt the small paper crane in his jacket pocket press lightly against his chest. Then the front door opened behind them. A family of 4 entered laughing, the parents dressed in crisp evening clothes. The father glanced at the dining room, then said, "No reservation. Any chance you can fit us in?" Claire brightened. "Of course," she said. "Right this way." She picked up 4 menus and led them toward the empty table beside the window. Maya did not say anything, but her hand tightened around Elijah's. He watched Grant watch the family walk away. Then he looked back at the manager and spoke in the same quiet voice. "Could you explain why they have a table and we do not?" Grant did not answer immediately. The family had already reached the window table. Their chairs slid back. A server poured water into 4 glasses. The little boy at the table pressed both palms against the glass and stared out at the river. Maya watched him for a second, then looked down at her yellow socks. Grant folded his hands in front of him. "They may have called earlier," he said. "The hostess just said they did not have a reservation." Claire's eyes dropped to her tablet. Grant gave a short breath through his nose, the kind a person made when he thought patience itself was proof of superiority. "Sir, this is a busy establishment. We have to make decisions quickly." Elijah nodded once. "I understand quick decisions. Then you understand that we cannot debate every seating arrangement at the door." Elijah looked past him at the room. The dining area was beautiful. That had once made him proud. Brick walls had been cleaned but not polished into something false. The old beams remained overhead. Amber pendant lights hung low enough to make people lean toward one another when they spoke. Naomi had chosen those lights. She said bright rooms made people feel watched. Warm rooms made them stay. But tonight, something had changed beneath the glow. The servers moved too fast. Their smiles arrived late. A young busser cleared a nearby table while checking over his shoulder every few seconds toward Grant. At the bar, an older couple sat with empty water glasses, trying unsuccessfully to catch someone's attention. The restaurant was full. It was also off balance. Elijah had felt that same imbalance in the reports sent to him every Monday morning. Riverside Table's downtown location had become the company's highest-rated branch on paper. Revenue rose. Private event bookings increased. The average check per customer climbed every quarter, yet the number of returning local customers had declined. Online reviews appeared, then vanished. A woman wrote that she had been treated like she did not belong. A veteran left a comment about being moved from a table near the window after a better-dressed party arrived. A family said the host had stared at their teenage son's wheelchair as if it had been an inconvenience. Each complaint had been marked resolved in the system. Each one had received the same response. "We investigated and found no evidence of improper conduct." Elijah knew the language because he had approved the original customer care templates himself. He had written them after Naomi's first manager told him that apologies needed to sound professional. Naomi had taken a red pen to the page. "Professional is not the same as human," she said. She changed the response to 3 sentences. "We are listening. We are checking what happened. We will tell you what we found." That was the version Elijah had expected the company to use. The one in the reports was colder, cleaner, designed to close a door, not open one. He had asked the board to let him investigate quietly, not because he doubted the complaints, because he wanted facts strong enough that no one could bend them. So he had come tonight as just Elijah Brooks, a father in an old jacket, a man whose daughter wanted cloth napkins. Grant stepped aside and made a small gesture toward the street. There are several family-friendly places nearby, he said. You might be more comfortable at one of them. Maya looked up. The words were polite. The message was not. Elijah felt her fingers curl around his hand again. What makes you think we would be more comfortable somewhere else? He asked. Grant's face stayed smooth. I did not say that. You did. I suggested alternatives. Based on what? Claire shifted her weight. The tablet in her hands made a faint plastic click. Grant lowered his voice. Based on the atmosphere we maintain here. For a moment, the piano music seemed louder. Elijah could hear the exact note where the player's left hand landed. He could hear ice drop into a shaker at the bar. He could hear Maya take a quiet breath beside him. Then he saw a server near the back of the room. She was young, maybe 22. Her dark hair was tied into a loose bun, and her black apron had a pale streak of flour across one side. She carried a tray of drinks, but her attention was on Grant. Not curious attention, worried attention. When Grant turned away, she looked directly at Elijah. Her eyes moved to Maya, then to the empty tables by the window. A brief flicker crossed her face. Not surprise, recognition. She knew something was wrong. Elijah gave her the smallest nod. She looked away at once and walked toward the bar. Grant reached for a stack of menus. I can put your name down for a later opening. How much later? An hour, maybe 90 minutes. Maya's stomach made a small sound. She pressed her free hand against it, embarrassed. Elijah looked down at her. Hungry? A little. You want to wait? Maya stared through the room at the window table. The other little boy had lifted a cloth napkin and tied it around his neck like a superhero cape. Her eyes moved back to her father. No, she said, I don't want to make you wait. Elijah crouched until they were eye level. You are not making me wait, but they don't want us here. He paused. Children heard the truth even when adults hid it under softer words. They do not get to decide what kind of people we are, he said. And they do not get to decide where you belong. Maya looked toward Grant. Are you mad? Elijah reached into his jacket and touched the paper crane. No, it was not exactly true, but it was the truest answer he could give her. Anger was there. It moved slowly like a deep current under river water. But anger was not the thing that would guide him. Facts would. Can we go somewhere with fries? Maya asked. We can. As Elijah stood, the young server with flour on her apron passed close by on her way toward the kitchen. A folded receipt slipped from beneath her tray and landed near his boot. She did not stop, neither did he. But when Grant turned to speak to Claire, Elijah bent down and picked it up. It was not a receipt. It was a narrow strip of order paper, torn cleanly from a kitchen printer. Across the top, in hurried blue ink, someone had written, Asterisk, don't leave. Please trust me. Nora. Elijah looked up. Through the small square window in the kitchen door, Nora stood still beside a stainless steel counter. She met his eyes. Then she glanced toward the office hallway behind Grant. And for the first time that evening, Elijah understood that the problem inside Riverside Table was much larger than one empty table. Elijah folded Nora's note once and slipped it into his pocket beside Maya's paper crane. Grant had turned his back to speak with Claire. His voice was low, but not low enough. Watch the door tonight, he said. We've got critics circling. Claire looked uneasy. Do you think he's one of them? Grant glanced toward Elijah without moving his head. I think he's someone looking for a free meal and a story. Elijah heard every word. He did not react. Maya had begun tracing the brass edge of the host stand with one finger. She looked sleepy now, and hunger made the soft roundness of her face seem smaller. Dad, she said. Can we go? In 1 minute. He walked to the side of the entrance, where a framed black and white photograph hung near the coat rack. It showed Riverside Table on opening night. The first location had been half this size. The windows were plain. The chairs did not match. Naomi stood in the center with flour on her cheek, laughing at something outside the frame. Elijah stood beside her, younger, thinner, wearing a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Grant passed behind him and paused. You know him? The manager asked. Elijah looked at the photograph. I knew the woman. Grant barely glanced at it. That was a long time ago. Yes, Elijah said, it was. Grant gave a small nod, already bored, and walked away. Maya stepped closer to the photograph. That's Mom, she said. It is. She looks happy. She was. Maya touched the lower corner of the frame, but did not press hard enough to leave a fingerprint. Did she make this restaurant? She helped. You helped too. Elijah looked toward the dining room. I carried boxes. Maya smiled. You always say that. Because it is true. It was not the whole truth. But the whole truth had never been important to Maya in the way adults thought it should be. To her, Elijah was the man who packed apple slices into school lunches and remembered to cut the crusts off sandwiches on field trip days. He was the man who waited outside dance class, with a book he rarely read because he was watching the door. He was the man who knew the names of every stuffed animal on her bed. That was enough. A sharp crash cut through the room. Heads turned. Near the bar, an elderly woman had pushed back from her chair. A glass lay broken on the floor beside her. Water spread across the dark wood. "I asked 3 times," the woman said. Her voice trembled, but it carried. "I asked 3 times for someone to bring my husband's medication bag from the host stand." A server stood frozen beside her. "I'm sorry, Mum," he said. "I was told the bag was not there." "It was right there," she snapped. "I put it there myself." Her husband sat at the table with one hand pressed against his chest. Not in pain, Elijah noticed, but frightened. The woman pointed toward Claire. "That girl told me it was safe. She said she would keep it behind the desk." Claire looked at Grant. Grant's jaw tightened. The young server, Nora, appeared from the kitchen doorway. Her tray was empty now. Her face had gone pale. "Elijah," Maya whispered. "That man is looking scary." Elijah followed her gaze. Grant was not looking at the older couple. He was looking at Nora. Nora moved quickly toward the host stand, searching beneath it. Her hands shook as she lifted menus, a box of candles, a reservation binder. "Where is it?" she asked Claire. Claire stared at her. "I don't know. You moved it." "I did not. You did. I saw you." Grant stepped between them. "Enough," he said. The older woman's voice rose again. "My husband needs that medication." A few diners stood. Others reached for their phones. Elijah saw the shape of the evening changing. A single missing bag could become a medical emergency. A medical emergency could become an ambulance. An ambulance outside Riverside Table on a Saturday night would bring attention Grant clearly did not want. But the manager was still protecting something else. Elijah watched Grant's hand move toward the base of the host stand, not to search, to block Nora from reaching one particular cabinet. Elijah had designed enough buildings to know that spaces revealed people. A hallway told you where someone expected crowds to move. A locked door told you what someone wanted hidden. A manager who stood between an employee and a cabinet told you where the answer might be. Nora saw it too. "Grant," she said quietly. "Move." His expression changed. For the first time, the polish slipped. "You need to get back to the kitchen," he said. "The medication bag is in there. You do not know that. I saw Claire put it there." Claire's face flashed white. Grant turned toward her, and the silence between them lasted less than a second. It was enough. Elijah stepped forward. "Sir," he said to the elderly man, "what does the bag look like?" "Brown leather," the man answered. "My wife's initials are on the side. E.M. "What medication?" "Heart medication," the woman said. "He takes it after dinner." Elijah looked at his watch. "How long ago did you sit down?" 20 minutes, she said. "Has he missed a dose?" "No," the husband answered. "Not yet." "Good." Elijah turned toward Grant. "Open the cabinet." Grant laughed once without humor. "You are not an employee here." "No," Elijah said. "I am a customer you refuse to seat. This does not concern you." Maya stood close behind her father. Her hand found the hem of his jacket. The room had gone quiet enough now that even the piano player had stopped. Grant leaned closer. "Take your daughter and leave," he said. "Before you make a bigger scene." Elijah did not move. He looked at the locked cabinet beneath the host stand, then at the guests watching, then at Nora, who stood with both hands clenched at her sides. Finally, he said, "A man's medication is missing in a room you manage. The only scene is the one you are creating." Grant's eyes narrowed. For one long moment, nobody moved. Then, from the office hallway behind him, a printer began to run, one sheet, then another. Then another. The sound was small, mechanical, steady. Nora turned toward the hallway first. Her face changed. "No," she whispered. Grant spun around. The printer kept going, and the first page slid out onto the floor where everyone could see it. At the top, in bold black letters, was the heading, *VIP seating priority, Saturday serviced. The printer did not stop. Page after page slid into the output tray, then spilled onto the floor in a white fan. Grant moved first. He crossed the hallway in 3 fast steps, but Nora was closer. She bent, caught one of the sheets before it landed, and stared at the lines printed across it. Her lips parted. "Grant," she said, not loudly. That made the room listen harder. Grant took the paper from her hand. "You are not authorized to be back here," he said. "I was bringing dessert menus." "You were snooping. I was looking for the medication bag." "You are always looking for something that is not your business." Nora's face went red. She looked no older than Maya's babysitter. Her eyes moved toward the dining room, toward the people watching, then down to the paper in Grant's fist. "It is my business when you make me do it," she said. Grant stepped closer. "What did you say?" Nora swallowed. Elijah saw the moment she almost backed away. Then Maya's voice came softly from behind him. "She helped us." Nora looked at her. Maya held Elijah's jacket with one hand. With the other, she pointed toward the folded note in his pocket as if she knew exactly where it was. She wanted us to stay. Grant's gaze landed on Maya. That is enough, he said. Elijah shifted half a step in front of his daughter, not aggressively, just enough. Grant noticed. His mouth tightened into a thin line. Sir, he said to Elijah, you are making my staff uncomfortable. Elijah looked at Nora. The young woman had flour on her apron. Her shoulders were stiff, her hands were shaking. Then he looked at Claire, who was standing beside the host, stand with her tablet pressed to her chest. She looked frightened too, but not in the same way. Nora looked like someone who had been carrying a weight for months. Claire looked like someone afraid of being caught holding one end of it. The staff was uncomfortable before I arrived, Elijah said. Grant's voice lowered. You are very close to being removed. By whom? Security. Call them. The words landed quietly. Grant had expected a fight, a raised voice, a threat he could use to label Elijah as difficult. He got none of it. Instead, Elijah stood in the center of the restaurant in worn boots and an old jacket, his daughter beside him, and waited. The manager's smile returned, but it had no warmth in it. Fine, Grant said, if that is what you want. He pulled out his phone. While he made the call, Nora crouched beside the host stand. Grant had left the cabinet key in the lock when he rushed toward the printer. Nora reached for it. Claire caught her wrist. Don't, Claire whispered. Nora looked at her. You put the bag there. You knew it belonged to them. I was told to clear the desk. By who? Claire did not answer. The elderly woman, still standing beside her husband's chair, heard every word. Open it, she said. Her voice cut through the room. Open that cabinet now. A few guests nodded. One man at the bar lifted his phone, recording openly. A woman near the window table leaned toward her husband and said, This is unbelievable. Grant ended the call. Security is on the way, he announced. No one moved. Elijah turned toward the elderly couple. My name is Elijah, he said. I am going to make sure the bag is found. The woman looked at him. Her anger had not disappeared, but it made room for something else. Evelyn, she said. And this is my husband, Martin. Elijah nodded. Mr. and Mrs. Ellis, has anyone besides the hostess handled it? Only a server, Evelyn said. A young man. He said he would take it to the desk. Nora looked toward a server standing near the bar. He was broad-shouldered, nervous, and wearing a gray vest under his apron. Dylan, she said. The server froze. Grant turned sharply. What about Dylan? Nora pointed at him. He took the bag from the table. Dylan shook his head. I brought it to Claire. You brought it to the office first, Nora said. I saw you. That's not true. You said Grant needed to check something inside it. The room seemed to contract. Grant's face changed again. This time there was no polish left at all. You need to stop talking, he told Nora. No, Elijah said. The word was calm, but it stopped Grant. Elijah stepped toward the cabinet and looked at the small key still hanging from the lock. He did not touch it. Instead, he turned to the guests. Before anyone opens this, I need someone to witness what is inside. The man recording at the bar raised his hand. I'm a lawyer, he said. Civil litigation, I can witness. A woman near the entrance spoke next. I'm a nurse, she said. If Mr. Ellis needs help, I can stay with him. Elijah nodded to both. Thank you. Grant laughed again, but this time the sound broke in the middle. This is ridiculous. You are turning a misplaced bag into a trial. Elijah faced him. No. You turned a simple question into a problem because you refused to answer it. Grant's jaw worked. What do you know about running a restaurant? Elijah looked past him at the framed opening night photograph. I know enough to recognize when people are being treated like obstacles. Grant followed his gaze, then looked back at Elijah. Do you think you are some kind of hero because you came in here dressed like that? Maya leaned closer to Elijah's side. The room went still. Grant saw the child react. He saw the eyes on him. But he kept going as if the words had already built too much speed to stop. Men like you walk into places like this, act offended, make accusations, and expect everyone to bend over backward because you want attention. Claire made a small sound. Nora shut her eyes. Elijah did not raise his voice. He looked at Grant for a long moment. Then he took the pale blue paper crane from his jacket pocket and placed it gently in Maya's palm. Hold this for me, he said. Maya closed her fingers around it. Elijah turned back to Grant. You do not know what I want, he said, but I know what you have shown my daughter. Grant said nothing. Elijah continued. You showed her that some people will look at a stranger and decide, without evidence, that the stranger deserves less respect. That lesson is yours, not hers. The front door opened. 2 security officers stepped inside. They wore dark uniforms with the Riverside Table logo on their sleeves. Grant pointed at Elijah. That's him, he said. He has been disrupting service. One of the officers looked at Elijah, then at the photograph on the wall, then back at Grant. His expression did not change, but he did not move toward Elijah. Instead, he lifted a hand to his earpiece and said, Control, this is Hall. Please confirm who authorized the owner-level access alert from this location. Grant turned, slowly. His eyes went to the office hallway, where the printer was still feeding out pages. And for the first time, fear entered his face. Grant looked from the security officer to the office hallway. What owner-level alert? He asked. Officer Hall touched his earpiece again. The answer came too quietly for the dining room to hear. But Elijah saw the officer's posture change. His shoulders settled. His eyes moved to Elijah with a new kind of attention. Understood, Hall said. Grant took one step toward him. Who are you talking to? Hall did not answer Grant. He walked to Elijah instead. Mr. Brooks, he said, I'm Officer Hall. Corporate security has been notified that protected company systems were accessed from this branch. Are you safe? The question reached every corner of the room. Claire's tablet slipped from her hands and struck the floor. Grant stared at Elijah. No, he said. No, that's impossible. Elijah did not correct him, not yet. He looked toward the cabinet beneath the host stand. Mr. Ellis's medication bag is still missing, he said. That comes first. Hall nodded immediately. Agreed. Grant put himself between them and the cabinet. This is absurd, he said. We do not open secured storage because some random customer makes a claim. Evelyn Ellis stepped forward. Her silver hair was perfectly arranged, though her face had gone hard with anger. I made the claim, she said. That bag belongs to my husband. Martin sat with one hand against the edge of the table. His breathing was steady, but his eyes stayed fixed on Grant. I served on the City Transportation Board for 20 years, Martin said. I know what people look like when they are hiding behind procedure. Grant's nostrils flared. The lawyer from the bar moved closer as well. He held his phone down at his side now, no longer recording like a curious diner. He was recording like a witness. My name is David Kim, he said. If that cabinet is opened, I will document the contents in chain of custody. Grant gave a short, irritated laugh. Everyone suddenly has a title tonight. Elijah watched the words land. He watched Nora flinch. He watched Claire look toward the floor. He watched Maya's small fingers tighten around the paper crane. Grant was not simply angry because he was losing control of the room. He was angry because the room had stopped arranging itself around him. Elijah knew that kind of anger. He had seen it in engineering meetings years ago, when a junior architect brought up a flaw in a senior executive's plans. He had seen it when Naomi refused to remove the low-cost community menu from their first restaurant because an investor called it bad for the brand. Some people believed their position made them right. When it did not, they tried to make everyone else smaller. Grant reached for the cabinet key. Hall raised a hand. Please step back, sir. Grant stopped. You work for me. Hall's did not leave him. I work for Riverside Table. The difference hung in the air. Grant looked toward Elijah again. His voice dropped. What is this? Elijah met his eyes. This is the moment you answer questions. Grant's face hardened. He turned sharply toward Claire. Tell them, he said. Tell them the bag is not in there. Claire looked at the cabinet, then at Nora, then at the guests standing around the host stand. Grant stepped closer to her. Tell them. Claire's lips trembled. Maya moved nearer to Elijah, pressing her shoulder against his arm. Dad, she whispered. Why is he talking like that to her? Elijah bent slightly so only she could hear him. Because he thinks being loud will make him right, does it? No. What makes someone right? Elijah looked at the cabinet key, the truth, and what they do after they find it. Maya thought about that. Then she nodded. Grant heard none of it. He was still staring at Claire, waiting for obedience. Finally, she spoke. The bag is in there. A sound traveled through the room, not a word, more like a breath released by 20 people at once. Grant's head snapped toward her. Claire's eyes filled, but she did not look away this time. You told me to put it there, she said. You said Mr. Ellis looked like a liability because he was asking for accommodations. Evelyn's face went still, Claire continued. Faster now, as if the words had been waiting at the back of her throat for months. You said if he had a problem, we could offer a gift card. You said people like that only complain because they want something. Grant took a step back. That is not what I said. It is, Nora said. Grant spun toward her. You have been trying to undermine me since your first week. No, Nora said. I have been trying to keep my job. Her voice shook, but she kept speaking. You made us use the VIP sheet. You told us who got window tables, who got moved near the kitchen, who we should tell to wait even when we had seats. You said the guests who fit the image spent more money. Grant looked around the room. At the guests, at Hall, at the lawyer, at Elijah. Then he pointed at Nora. She is a disgruntled employee. She has performance issues. She is late. She cries when things get busy. She has no idea what it takes to run a high-volume restaurant. Nora's hands curled into fists. Before she could answer, a man at a nearby table stood. He had been dining alone. His navy polo shirt bore a small City Utilities logo. Elijah had noticed him earlier because he had waited almost 15 minutes for water without complaining. "I saw the sheet," the man said. "The one from the printer." Grant looked at him. "You do not understand internal documents. I understand categories." The man picked up a page that had landed near his table. "This one says low-yield appearance. It is marked beside descriptions of people, families, seniors, people with children." He held the page where everyone could see. The list did not use names. It used coded labels: no reservation, casual dress, tourist appearance, family with young children, mobility issue, potential complainer, low-yield appearance. Beside each label were instructions: seat near service door, delay if premium table requested. Do not comp without manager approval, avoid window visibility during peak service. Evelyn lifted a hand to her mouth. Maya looked at the paper, then at Elijah. "Is that about us?" she asked. The dining room went quiet. Elijah did not lie to her. "Yes," he said softly. "It could be." Maya stared at Grant. Her eyes were wide, but she did not cry. "Because I have yellow socks?" "No," Elijah said. "Because you have boots?" "No." "Then why?" Elijah looked at Grant, who could not meet the child's gaze. "Because some adults forget that every person in a room has a story," Elijah said. "And they make bad choices." Maya looked down at the blue paper crane. Then she walked 2 small steps forward, until she stood beside the host stand. Grant watched her. Maya placed the crane carefully on top of the cabinet. "That is mean," she said. No one spoke. Officer Hall took the key from the lock. "Mr. Grant Hollis," he said. "Step away from the cabinet." This time, Grant did. Officer Hall removed the key from the cabinet lock and held it up for the room to see. "Mr. Kim," he said to the lawyer, "please continue recording." David Kim stepped closer. "Recording. The cabinet is being opened at 7:41 p.m., Hall said. "Present are restaurant guests, employees, corporate security, and the affected customers." Grant stood near the office hallway now. His hands were empty, but his fingers kept opening and closing at his sides. Elijah looked at Maya. "You do not have to watch this part. I want to stay. Are you sure?" She nodded, though she moved closer to him again. Hall opened the cabinet. At first, there was only a stack of takeout menus, a box of candles, and several unopened envelopes. Then Nora reached carefully past them and pulled out a worn brown leather bag. Evelyn made a sound that was almost a sob. "That's it?" Martin leaned back in his chair. The nurse, who had offered to help, checked him gently while Evelyn took the bag. Her hands shook as she opened it, found the medication, and passed it to her husband with a glass of water. For a few seconds, no one looked at Grant. They looked at Martin. They watched him swallow the pill. They watched his shoulders slowly loosen. Elijah kept one hand on Maya's shoulder. He had seen public confrontations become performances before. People started chasing the downfall of the person who had done wrong and forgot the people who had been hurt. He did not want that. Not tonight. "Mr. and Mrs. Ellis," Elijah said, "I am sorry this happened in our restaurant." Evelyn looked at him. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. "You said our restaurant." Elijah paused. "Yes." Grant laughed under his breath. It was a broken sound. "You own this place," he said. Elijah did not look at him. "I helped build it. Then you set this up." "No, you came in here dressed like that, waiting for someone to fail." Elijah finally faced him. "I came in here with my daughter because I wanted to know whether the complaints I was receiving were true." Grant's mouth opened, then closed. Elijah continued. "I wanted to believe the reports. I wanted to believe every complaint had been handled fairly. But a report is not the same as a person. So I came to listen." Grant's eyes moved around the room. The dining room had changed. No one was watching him with admiration now. The staff members who had avoided his eyes all evening were watching openly. The authority he had worn like a tailored suit was coming apart thread by thread. Hall crouched beside the cabinet. "There is more," he said. He removed the unopened envelopes. Each was marked with a date and a branch code. Inside were printed guest complaints, some with handwritten notes in the margin. Several had red stamps across the top. "Closed?" "No action." Nora took a step closer. "I knew those existed," she said. "I did not know he kept them here." Claire had gone pale. Grant said nothing. Hall placed the documents on the host stand one at a time. A complaint from a family whose reservation had been mysteriously canceled. A complaint from a deaf couple who had been denied service because no one wanted to slow down the floor. A complaint from a server who reported tip deductions that did not match payroll records. At the bottom of the cabinet was a black ledger. Hall did not open it. He looked at Elijah. "This needs to be secured." Elijah nodded. "Bag it. Preserve everything. No one touches it without counsel present." Grant stared at the ledger. That was when Elijah knew it mattered most. Not the seating chart, not the missing medication. Something in that book scared him. Hall spoke into his radio, requesting additional corporate security and outside counsel. Also notify the board chair. Grant snapped his head up. "You cannot call the board over this." Hall looked at him. I am not calling them over this. Mr. Brooks is. For the first time, Elijah saw Grant lose his balance. Not physically. Something inside him shifted. He looked at Elijah as if seeing him clearly for the first time. The board will stand with me, Grant said. Elijah did not answer. Grant pressed on. I made this place profitable. I cleaned up the chaos after you disappeared. You were too busy playing grieving father to run a company. The words hit the air like glass. Maya looked up. Elijah felt her shoulder tense beneath his hand. He could have answered with the truth. He could have told Grant about the nights he signed payroll approvals at 2 in the morning after folding tiny laundry. He could have told him about sitting in the hospital parking lot with contracts in his lap, because the company still needed workers paid. But Grant had already shown everyone who he was. Elijah did not need to explain himself to a man who used grief as an insult. Instead, he said, "We are done talking tonight." Hall stepped forward. "Mr. Hollis, you are being placed on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. You must surrender your keys, access card, company phone, and remain available for counsel." Grant stared at him. "You cannot put me on leave. Elijah Brooks can." The room held its breath. Elijah looked at the security officer. "Secure the location," he said. "Keep all hourly staff on the clock. Make sure every guest who chooses to leave receives a full refund. No employee is to be questioned alone tonight without the option of a representative." Hall nodded. Grant's face darkened. "This is not over." "No," Elijah said. "It is beginning." By 10 o'clock, Riverside Table had closed early. The guests were gone. The music had stopped. The warm lights that had once made the room feel welcoming now showed every missed spot on the floor, every chair pushed out of line, every page of the VIP list sealed inside an evidence bag. Elijah drove Maya home through quiet streets. She sat in the back seat with her forehead against the window. For several blocks, she said nothing. Then she asked, "Did Mom know people could be mean like that?" Elijah kept both hands on the wheel. "Yes. What did she do?" "She tried to make places better. Did it work?" He thought of the first Riverside Table, of Naomi handing a free bowl of soup to a man who had counted coins at the counter, of the employee scholarship fund she had started with money they could barely spare, of the way she remembered every server's birthday. "Sometimes," he said. "But making something better is not one big thing. It is a lot of small things, again and again." At home, Maya changed into pajamas and sat at the kitchen table while Elijah warmed leftover soup. The blue paper crane rested between them. One wing was bent now. Maya touched it gently. "Can we fix it?" Elijah sat beside her. "Yes." Together, under the small yellow kitchen light, they unfolded the damaged wing. Then they began to fold it back into shape. At 5:18 the next morning, Elijah stood outside Riverside Table with a cup of black coffee growing cold in his hand. The street was empty except for a delivery truck backing into the alley, and a woman walking 2 dogs beneath the riverfront lamps. The restaurant windows were dark. Inside, chairs were stacked on tables. The sign above the door still read, *Riverside Table. From the sidewalk, it looked unchanged. That was the danger of buildings, Elijah thought. A structure could stand straight while something inside it was failing. Before restaurants, before board meetings, before magazines called him a founder, Elijah had spent 14 years as a structural engineer. He inspected old bridges, public schools, warehouses, and apartment towers. His work was rarely dramatic. Most days involved reports, photographs, load calculations, and patient arguments with people who wanted repairs delayed because repairs cost money. He learned that collapse did not begin when concrete hit the ground. It began much earlier. A hairline crack ignored, a report rewritten, a warning filed under the wrong category. The job was not to admire what looked strong. The job was to notice what did not fit. At 5:30, Officer Hall unlocked the front door. "Counsel is in the office," he said. "Board chair is joining by video at 6. Any word from Grant?" He sent a message through his attorney. "He denies everything. I expected that." Hall held the door open. "Maya okay?" Elijah looked toward the sidewalk. "She's with my sister this morning." Hall nodded. "Good." The word stayed with Elijah as he entered. Good. It was a small word, but after the previous night, it felt like a responsibility. The restaurant smelled different before opening. No roasted garlic, no warm bread. Only disinfectant, cold metal, and the faint scent of wine from glasses waiting upside down on the bar. In the back office, 3 people sat around a conference table. Marianne Voss appeared on a laptop screen at the far end. She was 71, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and had been on Riverside Table's board since the second location opened. Years ago, she had been the first bank officer to approve Elijah and Naomi's modest business loan. Beside the laptop sat Anita Powell, outside employment counsel. Across from her, a forensic accountant named Luis Herrera opened a hard-sided case full of cables and secured drives. "Elijah," Marianne said from the screen. "I am sorry." He nodded once. "Thank you for coming in early. I wish it had been for better reasons. So do I. Luis connected a device to the restaurant's point-of-sale server. Anita opened a legal pad. The ledger is secured, Hall said. No one has accessed Grant's office since last night. Elijah walked to the whiteboard mounted on the wall.